I've been thinking about changing the intro tune, but it just works. It gets me going. It's 30 seconds to calm the nerves, to make sure everything's loading. I think we're gonna rock it for a little bit, but appreciate everybody swinging out. I'm really looking forward to tonight's guest and the awareness and just the journey that Matty's been on. Super proud of this guy. I'll kind of leave it at that until we get talking with him, but very cool. I mean, the ending of the story, I mean, is really interesting, and I'm very happy for him for finding the way. Before we get started here, I do want to say, hey, Justin's on time. What's up, Justin? I'm on time for once, he says. I do want to say a quick shout out to our sponsor of the show. That'd be Higher Love. They have multiple locations across the UP. If you haven't found your love yet, I can help you find it. And if you found your love, let's get some higher love. See how I did that? The promo code to use is above us here on the header, where it says the code for listeners, because of course we don't sell anything or recommend the sale of anything, because we got to play nice with the standards of the group. So, but again, Higher Love, we literally wouldn't be here without them helping be a partner in this. So super appreciative of that. Without further ado, let's get things rolling here. Matty, looks like he's ready in the green room. Let's bring on Matty. And here we go. Matty.
What's going on, guys?
I'm not going to lie, man. One day I'm going to have a background. It's just, I don't know what to do. Like, I love your background. Is that signed too?
Yeah, well, these are all different people that support my page. And
that's awesome.
All of it's recovery dates and different people in recovery. So,
dude, let's go.
Yeah.
See, I got to come up with something meaningful. I just got a whiteboard and a bunch of board games. So one day.
Right on, man. Right on. No, I like the green screen too. That works.
It works. One day. But no, if you don't mind, Matty, the people obviously tend to hear me yapping quite a bit. And so I'm kind of covered, but could you give us just a little introduction to you? Matty.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks everybody for tuning in today and listening to me and just giving us an opportunity to speak here. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing here at Let's Legalize Wisconsin. Since I've started following this page, I've actually learned quite a bit from your video about THCA and then to just everything you're doing. And it's really actually, I've been trying to get fired back up into doing a little more advocacy. I've been doing this since 2018. And over the last year, I've kind of fallen off, put it on the back burner a lot because I just had some mental blocks and things going on. So I've really been trying to get back into this. I've felt this is my calling. So this is kind of part of that stepping back into it. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here and share with you guys, and appreciate everybody just taking a minute and listening. My name is Matty Jablonsky. I'm from northern Wisconsin originally, from up in Hawkins. If you guys know Hawkins, population like 300. Back in the early 2000s, I was in high school and I got introduced to methamphetamine at age 17. I was kind of in the runnings of just partying. At first, it was mostly innocent, just getting drunk and smoking weed and things like that, dabbling with our intellect, dabbling with our brains, Yep. But through that process, I got introduced to meth, and that really just took hold. Not like instantly, honestly, because if you remember the early 2000s, there was a lot of stuff going around about meth mouth and about what happens, the effects of meth. So I was well aware that meth was bad for you. It wasn't like
sure.
But I started hanging around that crowd, and I just started doing meth, and at first it was like, whoa, I'll dabble with it, but it's scary stuff. But honestly, other than drinking beer and smoking weed, I had never really done anything else. I didn't even know drugs could do that to you. I didn't know that something could just give you energy. For me, when I first tried meth, it was like, it blew my mind. It was just like, wow, this makes me feel so good. And I have so much energy, and it doesn't make your eyes red. And you're not tired, you're just awake, man.
Sure.
And not only do you feel good, but you want everybody else to feel good. It like feels like there's no downside to this, like this is just the greatest. But I was still very leery. Like I said, I kind of knew this was bad. So I was just very much like, oh, every once in a while I'll do it if it comes around or whatnot. But it eventually came into where it took over. And from age 17, I didn't stop using it till I was 30. And by the time I was 30, it was an everyday thing. And I was every bit the toothless meth addict that you would think of when you look at like, the stereotypical meth addict. I had the sunken cheeks and missing all my teeth. This is a denture here. So I was down and dirty and stealing from my own family and a criminal as well. I was a thief, liar, manipulator. I was in toxic relationships. My life before recovery was an absolute hell. It literally was just, I can't even explain the darkness that I was in. And finally, it all came to a head February 3rd, 2017. I was arrested. Kind of crazy how it all went down. Of course, there's such a tangled web we weave,
Oh yeah.
There was so many different parts that took place, but I got arrested and I went to jail for 97 days. Should have been 7 months, but I had a lot of time sat because I was on probation for years and I was in and out of jail for getting, I'd fail a piss test or miss a probation visit or whatever. So I was in and out of jail all the time and I had racked up like months worth of time that just sat in jail. So when they gave me the 7-month sentence, it ended up only being 97 days. But in those 97 days, I had a lot of wake-up calls. Like a lot of things just happened to hit me at the right time. They put me in a cell with some guys that knew me from the outside. And at first I didn't bother me at all, but there was a few more people that kept coming through the door. And it was like everybody that came through that door was like, oh, Matty, what's up, dude? Oh, no. And all of a sudden you start to realize like if everybody you surround yourself with is these guys who are in and out of jail and they're all like, you're their best, you start to question your own morality in this,
Right.
And then having this weird reaction of, like some of these guys that were coming in because they were arrested for meth charges. And I was the guy who introduced them to that drug and got them addicted to it. And now they're catching charges for it and they're coming into jail and they're happy to see me. Like it was kind of a realization of the psychosis that drugs had us all in,
Sure.
That, because like if I was eating chicken that I knew was bad and I gave you some of my bad chicken and then the next day I was in the hospital and they wheeled you in next to me, you wouldn't be like, oh, Matty, dude, you're the guy who gave me that chicken, man. That's awesome.
That's a really good way to put it. I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Well, and like you say, it had us kind of start because, I mean, it happens all the time where, we question something and it's like, no. But then, like you say, it's almost like a sign that it wasn't just one person, which could be very likely, or it could be very likely that nobody ended up there that you knew. But so it's like that was kind of
that was one factor. And then my mom came to see me while I was in jail. She'd never came to see me before. My dad always came to see me, but my mom never did. And talking to your mother through that glass and her seeing you in that orange jumpsuit, and she wasn't even angry. Like she was angry, she was upset, but like she didn't like yell at me. She was just kind of like,
you could just feel it you could feel it in the heart, like
so heartbroken and didn't even know where to start, like, and just kind of, what you're doing, like, better, like all of it, and that hit me in the heart. And then one day the guy comes in the jail, the jailer comes in and he's like, anybody for NA or AA, come on out. And my bunkmate, who the whole time I've been there for the first week there, we've been just talking about drugs the whole time. He's a full-blown meth addict, just like me. Another thief, like we're two peas in a pod. And he stands up and heads to the door for NA. And I was like, dude, you go to NA? And he was like, dude, it gets me out of the cell for an hour. We go to the library. We talk about drugs. The guy's actually pretty cool. And sometimes they let you bring a magazine back or something. And I was like, that's not so bad. Like, might have to check that out. So the next week I signed up for it. Now, NA isn't something I continued with because of some obvious rules that they hold that I don't abide by. But it was a big key factor to my early recovery, and going there every week for those 97 days I was in there was really, a lot of seeds were planted. And I feel like it was my idea of going there. That's my mama.
Is it? Hi,
yeah,
Mom.
that's my mama. My idea of going there was just to get out of the jail cell, and just to get a book maybe or whatever.
Sure, do something. Change it up a little bit.
Exactly. But when I walked in that door, and the guy running the meeting was really cool, and he was happy to see me. He was like, "Hey, man, good to have you here, blah, blah, blah." And when you're in jail, not a lot of people who are happy to see you. So that was kind of nice to like have somebody who was like, "Hey, Matty." And so going in there and sitting there and talking about those drugs, I think like my soul started to come alive during it a little bit. I started to really bear how much trauma I was causing inside myself, because when all you do is talk to other drug addicts and they're all doing the same bad shit you are, like you can normalize it, but when you're all of a sudden in a room with people who used to do that stuff, but they don't anymore, there's this realization that you could be better too, I guess.
Right. You could still, definitely.
You kind of see, if these guys could change, I guess I could too, and with Charlie, the guy who was leading the meeting, he told his story. And I mean, his story was like, it was pretty epic. And then at the end of it, he like stole a Camaro and he was all wasted. And he took this Camaro around this corner and he freaking took it off a ravine and smashed it and ended up waking up in the hospital. And after that, realized he needed to get sober and straighten himself out. And now, honestly, looking back and remember what I don't like to say somebody's addiction was worse or better, but at that time I had that mindset. And when he said that, I was like, oh, well, this guy's worse than I am. And but looking back, no, he wasn't.
Right.
But I was like, this guy's worse than I was, and he's doing it, so maybe I could too. And that was like a huge pivotal moment of me realizing that I could do something better. And then like the first time being in that meeting, like as soon as he was like, "Does anybody got any questions? Any guys got anything that you could ask?" Like instantly, like my soul was like, "Yes, I have a question." And my first question was, how do I forgive myself for all the bad shit I did? Because like that was the biggest weight I had to I couldn't imagine the things I had done, and stealing from my own family and just people I had hurt. I could not imagine just living a normal life now. It just didn't make sense to me. And everybody that I ever talked to had given me a really shitty answer. They'd always told me, "Well, you need to forgive yourself." And they were right, but like, how do you do that? What do I do? Do I go look in the mirror and say, "Hey, self, I forgive you. It's okay, self"? Nope. I still feel like a piece of crap. So how
and real quick, a part of that too, now that I'm just kind of thinking of what you're explaining, like, because I mean, we just know how tough life is in general, and just like trying to convince yourself. But you bring up a good point, because I've been trying to put myself in your shoes, and I can realize how hard this would be, as far as you just fall into the wrong crowd. That's all it takes. And it's disappointing to know you didn't do what was right, or you didn't reach where you thought you could get. And then when you start looking at a list, it's hard to be like, okay, so do I just say everything's okay, or do I start like one at a time? And now I got to look at this. Okay, do I go down the list? And so I completely get what you're saying, as far as that goes.
Yeah, and that's not even for anybody who's ever like done horrible drugs like I did. Like just in general life, you do some bad shit sometimes, and you wrong some people, and like it can build up on a guy, And I think it's that one glaze over answer of how, just you need to forgive yourself can be kind of like if you need to process, And so I asked in that meeting, how am I supposed to forgive myself for all the bad shit I did? And he said, by receiving forgiveness from others, you'll begin to forgive yourself. And here I am almost 7 years later, still saying that, dude. That was pivotal, hearing him say that. And then once I worked it out, like one of the steps in the 12 steps is to actually like get into it and write out a whole list of every person you've ever wronged, everything you've ever done. And it's a very bureaucratic process. It takes forever. I didn't complete that process, but I did get into writing a letter to the point where I had the breakthrough of, wow, look at all these names. And I just wrote like, I'd write a name and then I'd write like intro, like if I introduced them to meth, or I stole from this guy, or, I did this to this guy, I did that to this guy. And I had 2 or 3 notebook pages and I was just getting started. Like, so,
right.
So I came to this realization that, some of these people, I'm not going to be able to do anything to fix this because, I just don't talk to them anymore, or some of them are dead and all this other stuff. So what I decided in my own way was I was going to kind of just keep my side of the street clean. And as these people came on my mind, I would reach out in some way and apologize. And just, I'm not going to like the NA way is to actually sit down with your sponsor and go through this list one at a time and call each person or do whatever and get a hold of them until this list is complete. For me, it was just a matter of, okay, like honestly, half of these people I could forget about.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I don't want to do all that. And I can understand some people in NA are going to say, hey, then you skimped out, but hey, this is how I did it. And here I am. So this is what's working for me, but,
Sure.
But I made so many amends just on like the people that came to my mind, like reaching out to them on Facebook or Messenger, email, whatever I could find, and just saying, hey man, I just wanted to say I did this, this, and this, and I'm really sorry. And, if there's anything I could do, let me know, but just wanted to say that I'm sorry. And, for what it's worth or whatever. And dude, it worked. Like receiving forgiveness from these people on the things I had done. When you hear the victim of the circumstance say, hey, because 90% of them said, hey, it's okay. I only had like 2 people that were like, screw off, dude, I never want to hear from you again. Sure. But most of them were like, dude, it's okay. You don't owe me nothing. I know we were in a bad way. You're good, and just hearing that like takes such a relief off your soul, like of just, some of it was like stuff that I had like thought I need to off myself because I did that, And
Sure.
then when you hear the victim of it say, nah, it's good, dude. Like, you're like, good. Cause
right.
I was thinking I had to die, dude. Like, and they're like, no, man. Like,
and you bring up a good point. Cause just like we were kind of talking with that list, it's hard when you're just talking to yourself to know, okay, I forgave myself. So I can see where you'd be struggling to like find that little bit of like, I'm doing something better now, because how do you verify that? So I think that really makes sense as far as, you're reaching out to people and you can kind of start to build that confidence back. Would you say that I can change and I can?
For sure. It's definitely a confidence builder. It's definitely I think for the people you're calling to, it's an opportunity for them to give you forgiveness, which is also another beautiful thing. But I think for yourself, it's like I said, seeing that your actions are forgivable, because a lot of times when you've wronged a lot of people, including yourself or your family or loved ones, you can start to feel like I'm unforgivable, especially when you've done stuff that is wrong and stuff that you wouldn't forgive other people for doing to you. And then you have to face yourself once you come out of that addiction, and you have to look back and say, you're trying to become a better person, and then look back at all these things that you had done. It can be really overwhelming, and it can be defeating, and it can make you feel like there's no point in getting better because of all these bad things. And a lot of people go back to the way they were living because they decide, I'm no good. And they've attached that identity to themselves. But dude, I did meth for 13 years, lied, stole, did all of the worst things you can do. And I'm still pushing, and you can too. And you can make that change, just because and there is a, you have to conquer your ego in the fact that, like, when you've been in a drug addiction or a criminal lifestyle for years, you've been saying and doing things that now all of a sudden you're saying that those things that you did are terrible. You have to, like, in that moment, you have to own up and, like, admit to yourself and God and others that, hey, everything I've been saying and doing for years has been wrong, and I'm going to change now. Like, that's kind of a huge blow to your pride and to your ego, so it's a whole process of removing yourself from yourself. Like,
and I did some quick math here because I'm trying to look at this as best I can and take it from a personal standpoint, just again. And so that would be roughly 44,750 days of, and again, you didn't do this on purpose, but your mindset had to be, this isn't great, but it's not the worst, right? Like, and then to have to come, I feel like every day that you continue that journey, it's going to get harder and harder. And I think that's what's the most inspiring thing, is that, something you were on, something you were attached to for so long, you still were able to overcome. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
been a hell of a journey.
Yeah, I bet. If you don't mind me asking, so when you were in jail, it dawned on you that, maybe I can do this. What because, and I don't know, so pardon my ignorance, or if it comes across that way, I'm not trying to be, but so did you start having withdrawals in prison?
In jail was, with meth, there's not a physical dependency like there is with, like, heroin or even alcohol, where your body becomes physically dependent upon the chemicals. With meth, there's nothing in it that is something that your body needs. So therefore, when it's gone, the only detox is, well, I had been on it for so long, and towards the end of my addiction, the last, I would say 5 or 6 years of my addiction was the worst. That was the tail, it was all kind of a slow downward spiral. And those last 5-6 years were just absolute hell and chaos. And I was using meth on a regular basis at that point. So when you're putting a chemical continuously into your body, and it not having the time to get back out of your body, and then you're compounding it over time, so it's a matter of just getting that out of your system, which with meth is it's pretty quick. So the withdrawal process, the initial withdrawal, isn't like quite as terrifying or terrible as like heroin, where you're like shitting your pants and puking on yourself, but it's more super tired, a little irritable, aches and pains, either super hungry or not hungry at all, either trouble sleeping or oversleeping. For me, it was oversleeping for like the first 2 weeks in jail. And I thought it was just a week. When later on in jail, I was talking about it with somebody. I was like, yeah, that first week I was here when I just slept the whole time. And he was like, dude, that was the first 2 weeks you were here. And I was like,
you were sleeping.
What? And he's like, yeah, you were in your bunk every day. You'd get up, you'd come out, you'd eat your food, go back to sleep, and did that for 2 weeks straight, dude. Like, I was like, and then I had to like do the math and figure it out, and he was right. So
sure. No, for sure.
And they all thought I was an asshole. And then when I finally came around and started coming out of the cell and like talking to them, they're like, oh, you're actually kind of cool to talk to.
I thought you were like this old grouch that didn't want to talk to anybody. And
right.
My man was just trying to catch up on his beauty sleep.
For sure. I need my food and I need my sleep, man.
So was it, and I know we kind of had made a little list, but let's just see how this rolls here real quick, because now I'm just curious. So when you're in prison, you figure out, which again, each one of these steps is a huge step. So it's the time frame is just like, man, that had to be really interesting because you're thinking you're doing right, but you have nothing to tell you for sure that you are, So because then you could look at it as, well, now I'm sleeping a lot. That's my body telling me this isn't the right thing, or these guys think I'm a dick, so maybe I do need it. You're going through a lot, and that's just I can't even really comprehend fully. But my question, I guess, coming up here is, at what point did you realize that cannabis was maybe a better option to help you as far as the issues that you have, and or when you would feel that need to have some kind of substance, or just get out of the norm of
Honestly, I think I knew that cannabis was the right thing for me when I was younger and I was just dabbling and partying and playing. I think I kind of figured out back then that cannabis helped me. But then when I got lost in active addiction and meth, I honestly, at the end, like I said, the last 5-6 years, I was doing meth every day. Cannabis was the last thing on my mind. In fact, because it crashes you out when you're on meth. So. Unless I was coming down, then it was like, yes, I would love some weed because I'm just horrible, So, yeah. And that's a huge player right there. That shows me. And the fact that so many people I've talked to that have done drugs will say the same thing. Dude, I wanted weed when I was coming down. Really, to me, shows you that it's good for a withdrawal drug, to help people off of the other drugs, because it does alleviate the symptoms of withdrawal. It takes away the shakes. It gives you an appetite. It helps you sleep. Like all those things that you can't do while you're withdrawing, weed will help you do.
Well, and there's, our bodies will still never, in my opinion, never fully understand them because we can observe, but it's still like the brain and everything, right? It just crazy to think of. But when you're talking your body, because if you're looking at, because I could see some people going, well, it's just it feels good because it just we don't fully understand everything about us, but we have an endocannabinoid system, all of us do, and cannabinoids are what make up cannabis. So if you find something, especially that's a plant, yes, there is some bad stigma around it, but that doesn't mean that if you find a plant, and that helps you with anything, that you're a bad person. I mean, just the same way that Advil helps with a headache, but again, that's made with whatever. I'm going to look into that someday. But anyway, so it's very interesting to me that the possibilities of cannabis, I feel like they're growing all the time, where it's like, oh, it's actually found that it could help with this. And it could help with that. And it's such an intriguing plant because, one strain might help me with joint pain, but it might help you with headaches and not your joints. So all of our bodies are different. And the fact that there's a plant that carries many of the same attributes that a lot of fruit and vegetables do, like as far as the terpenes and stuff, it's crazy. So I'm really glad that because I could see where it could be taken the wrong way, but I absolutely mean this to anybody who's listening. I'm really glad that you found pot, if you want to call, you know what I mean? Like that you were able to find something different. And again, do you think at any point in your journey that let's take this back. What is your view? How would you break down the idea that cannabis is a gateway drug?
Ooh, I love that you asked this, Bobby.
Yeah. I got you.
So, all right. So the gateway drug idea. I actually agree on a lot of levels. I agree that cannabis could be a gateway for some people. I agree on the level of if someone does follow a linear path of addiction, right? Starting with lesser psychoactive and then working their way up in psychoactivity, that cannabis is going to be on that climb. I understand that. So, and I do, in my own mind, when I used harder drugs, when I first used meth, one of my thoughts was, well, I've smoked weed before. So, so it took a little bit of the fear away from doing the next level of drugs. I also think that I don't think that weed is ever going to make somebody like want to do the next level of drugs. Some people might want to level up. And I've heard of heroin addicts, especially in recovery, that have told me, dude, I can't smoke weed because as soon as I smoke weed, I really want heroin because it's kind of a similar buzz for me. And I just crave heroin right away. So I can't smoke weed. And I totally get that. Weed isn't it isn't the cure all for every single person. It's not right for everyone. For me, it just happens to be that it works wonders compared to anything else I could have tried. But and I had tried some antidepressants and some things before that were just they weren't lining up, and mood stabilizers and other things that doctors had put me on in the past. And not nonsense.
I know what you're talking about. I had the same thing with when I was having issues getting to sleep and all the different. I remember like Ambien wasn't even the most strong. I feel like because when the Ambien didn't work, then it was we'll give you this, and it was all like again the fact that something so strong and so can affect you in so many different ways. That's okay. Yes, that's okay because the doctor said so. So. Yeah,
I see a comment there that alcohol is the gateway drug, and I was going to say actually that's the woman who did that original study that said, or has been credited with saying that cannabis is the gateway drug, has actually come forward and said that that's never what she said. If you look at her study, her findings were that it was nicotine, then alcohol, then cannabis. And she never stated that cannabis was the gateway drug. The reason that other people started calling it the gateway drug was because it's the drug, or it was the first thing on the level of increase that I talked about before. It's the first one that crosses the line of illegality. That's why people decided it's the gateway drug. But my other thought on the gateway thing is that if you had two people and like this guy doesn't do any drugs like at all, but he will smoke weed, right? That's the one drug he will do. And this guy over here does every drug on the planet. The gateway between these two people's lives becomes cannabis. You know, like you might inadvertently end up hanging out with this guy or talking to this guy because you both smoke weed, right? So I could see how that, and I really think that legalization will cut down on that factor, because now dude who only smokes weed can just go to the dispensary. He doesn't have to go to this guy to get his freaking weed, because this guy's going to try to upsell you. You know, he's going to be like, hey, dude, I know you usually get weed from me, but I got some cocaine, or I got some Molly, or whatever I got.
Whatever he's got to move.
Yeah, he's trying to upsell you, you know. So that's where I see crossover, and I really think that legalization is the next step that's going to help with keeping that from happening, you know. But my opposite approach to that is remember that gates open both ways. Like, so not only is it this guy is going to hang out, you know, it could hang out with this guy, but like this guy here could end up talking to this guy, you know, and then you could bring this guy over to the life of clean, like they did with me, you know. Went back to just being a stoner. It's a much better life.
It's to the point where when someone calls me a stoner, I know they're trying to be derogative, then I super engage it, because it's to the point where I'm cool with just a word, you know, and to me, I want people to know I use cannabis. So I'm cool calling whatever you want to call me. That's just saying that I use cannabis, because that just makes me that much more excited to show you that I can be a normal person, because most of us are. Is there people who use too much cannabis? I'm sure there is. And in fact, that was me in my first year of college, first semester.
My first year of recovery, bro. Like,
right?
I would wake up. I had my bowl packed underneath my bed. I would just, and it wasn't even a bed. It was my buddy's couch. I just had my bowl under there, pull it out and smoke right away. Whole bowl right to my head every morning. Like, I can't even imagine doing that now. But I really think it was kind of pivotal for me in early recovery, because, like, dude, the craving that meth leaves you with, like I said before, withdrawals don't last too long, but the cravings last for so long. Like, it was months later that I would still be having cravings, and those cravings would go away so quick with just a quick go outside, smoke my pipe, you know. And well, in the beginning, it took high doses, you know, high level doses of cannabis to keep my ass functioning and keep my ass from running out to try to find some meth. But, I give credit to God on a lot of it too, because there was a lot of times when shit lined up where it was like I was pushing to go back out and like doors would just close, like situations would fall apart that I had like tried to set up. You know what I mean? So it was like there were things at work keeping me clean that I didn't even know.
Oh, sure. Well, and real quick, when we're talking like the differences in the drugs, and I got to remember that, especially with the senators, because yes, they need hands-on, easy things to follow, and that would be really good. But to think of something that, because this is, I'm also trying to think of things that will help be talking points when I talk to them, and the one that I know, but just thinking of that, when you talk about all this that this guy has, out of all this terrible stuff that this guy has, which one of them can you overdose on?
Right.
Almost all of them,
Almost all of them, except for weed. Uh-huh. And
So again, but somehow to try to act like these are all the same. Yeah,
that's one of those arguments that I think falls apart so quick, that a drug is a drug is a drug argument. Like, so Tylenol is the same thing as meth or as heroin then? And they're like, well, that's not what we meant. It's like, well, then what are we splitting hairs, or what are we doing here with the drug is a drug is a drug? How far are we going? Are we
Where are
just
we
talking
drawing the
legal
line?
drugs? We're just talking legal, illegal? Where's the
Sure.
line at? Everybody draws a line in the sand somewhere.
Well, and even I'm gonna be getting those. My buddy did a lot of research. Shout out to Marcus. Back in the day, just a few years ago, of the history of cannabis in Wisconsin, and he would find some newspaper articles and stuff. And there's a lot of cool stuff. But to also just to reference the history of, like, there was times that hash was. Oh, now don't quote me on this for sure, even though I'm fairly certain of it. It was very similar to a Sears catalog. I think it was even the Sears catalog, and you could get hash candies. And like,
Wow.
cannabis has been around so long, and there was never this big, oh my god, everyone who's using it. It was like it. So yeah, it's really interesting that again, when something flipped for the one person that had enough power to just, we're gonna make it bad, and the fact that it's still so strongly talked against, it's just, I'm glad there's people. I mean, obviously, ideally, you wouldn't have had to go through all that, but I'm glad there's people that can advocate to show and be living proof that, hey, this is what I was doing for 13 years. That is a drug addiction, or whatever you'd want to call it. Here's what my life's been like since I went to cannabis. And maybe if cannabis was legal, we'd have some few other people that could try to, I feel like knowing something's legal, you might be more apt to try it. And then to try to find something that, again, it's so cool, because certain dose helps with anxiety, certain helps with back pain, certain helps with relaxing, some helps with just creativity. Like,
there's so many strains for so many things, man.
Right.
And Matt Reeve there brings up an awesome point. He said, food addiction, not a drug, but still damaging. And I'd love to add to that. One thing, a view that the recovery world seems to have, is that you have to be 100% clean and sober. You can never have any mind or mood altering substances again, because you're a drug addict and you'll just abuse it and you'll lose your mind. So there's like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde mindset that you're going to take one drug and you're going to, and just lose your mind and steal grandma's purse and run out and jump in the car and grab a gun. And I understand that mindset. And some people that heightens their recovery. Staying away from all mind or mood altering substances is something they have to do. And I can totally understand that. But I think there is this weirdness we see towards drug addiction, because drug addiction is not the only form of addiction. Like Matt said, there's food addiction, there's workaholism, there's gambling addictions. With a food addiction, do we tell people with a food addiction that they can never eat again because they're addicted to food and they'll just lose their mind so they can't eat? We don't tell them that. We don't tell workaholics that they can never work again. We don't tell sexaholics that they can never have sex again. We don't tell gambling that they can't gamble. A lot of gambling addicts will have like a jackpot app on their phone or something. You could consider that, it's something that still gives the same thing. It's a level of harm reduction, is what I would say it is. But but then there's this duality mindset that a drug addict can never use drugs again because they've just gone too far with it. And I really believe that addiction is so demonized, and I get it. Like, addiction is, it's horrible, and watching a person fall into a drug addiction or alcoholism it's like what the worst thing you can ever see. But on a lot of levels, addiction is just part of our natural, like, I don't want to say evolution necessarily, but it's part of our instincts, because like your brain gives you a reward for doing things that are, that are good and feel good, like sex and food and things like that. Your brain gives you a dopamine shot when you do those things to reward you and let you know, hey, we should do that again. That felt good. The reason that drug addiction and alcoholism is like so quick and so devastating is because it skips like the whole process. Because like with a sex addiction or a work addiction, there's a lot of work involved to get your dopamine drop, right? Like you have to actually find a partner to have sex with and do all the things to get, to have sex, and then put all that work in. Or with work, you have to go to work and do the thing and then have the finished product to get that dopamine release. Where with drugs, it's just shoot it, smoke it, put it in your veins, whatever you can do, and bang, here's your dopamine release right there. So drugs and alcohol cause addiction to take place faster than those other things would, if that makes sense. With cannabis as a harm reduction, I really feel the things it does in your brain, like the process, like you were talking about before with the endocannabinoid system and all that, like it really helps with that whole process of rewiring your brain, if that makes sense. Sure. Because you've made some super highways in your brain during a drug addiction. You make some super highways to doing bad things, and you have to rewire all that stuff to doing a good thing, So sure. I feel like cannabis is just a wonderful midway for those things.
I agree with that. And real quick, Christy brought up define drug versus medicine. I'm not going to lie. I went to the old Chat GPT because it's been on point lately, and I wanted to see what it said just to help, because that's a great question.
It really is.
I think it brings Chat GPT, I think, might knock this one out of the park.
Ooh.
First up, medicines. These are the good guys in the story. Think of them like superheroes for your health. Medicines are specifically designed to fight off diseases, manage conditions, and keep you feeling like a rock star. They're like the reliable sidekick that helps you stay on top of your game. Whether it's a pill for a headache, insulin for diabetes, or even chemotherapy for cancer, these are all medicines working their magic. Now let's switch the gears to drugs. This is where it gets a bit tricky, because the word drug has got two faces. On one side, it's just a general term for any substance, including medicines, that can have an effect on your body for better or worse. But when most people say drugs, they're usually talking about the kind that can be misused or can get you high, like cannabis, cocaine, or ecstasy. Wow, that's quite the grouping. These are the rebels of the story, often used for recreation and not always legal. The key thing here is that all medicines are drugs. Not all drugs are medicines. Medicines have a clear mission to heal and are legally approved. The other drugs, well, they might make you feel like you're on top of the world, but they can also have some risky side effects and legal issues. Well, see, what's interesting about that is I feel like a lot of medicines have risky side effects where cannabis doesn't.
Yeah, the biggest risk with cannabis is that it's illegal.
quite literally, like, so yeah, that's a touchy. That's a good point, though. Like, I need to make sure that I try to figure out a clear message on that, because that essentially is what we're trying to do here, is to get rid of the derogatory "it's a drug," because even when we talk about recreational, I advocate for medicinal and adult responsible use. Which adult responsible use, I'm advocating for the that gets rid of their, can be used to, like, that's the thing is, it's everywhere. So I was just explaining this today. I'm like, because a lot of people are talking about medicinal only, which is good, and it's great. It's really good. But I just hope you realize you still take more off the streets if you legalize it.
Oh,
And it
for
doesn't,
sure.
there's no ill, the only thing it hurts is your ego because you think you're right. There's nothing, especially with the bordering state. I mean, cannabis is everywhere and a lot of people are using it and most of them are doing it responsibly. Legalizing it for, even if they want to call it recreational, I don't know of any of the other states that have come out with this thing saying, hey, we really shouldn't have legalized. I haven't heard that once. So
well,
I need
to, that's something that it gets demonized for in recovery world as well, is the fact that cannabis is recreational, that it is, so a lot of people use it for just for fun. Even people who use it medicinally will report, that they enjoy it. So I think that gets looked at in the wrong light. Like, I really think as far as the medicinal side of it, one of the biggest problems we have with people with mental health issues is getting them to take their medicine. Like, a lot of us with mental health problems, like, we take our medicine and then we start to feel better. So we go, I don't need the medicine anymore because I feel better, when the medicine was working. So here you have a medicine that the patient enjoys taking their medicine. That should be looked at as a positive thing, really.
Yeah.
And even if it is a recreational thing, like, there are far worse things and far more terrible things for your health than smoking cannabis. I mean, it's just I agree. Sometimes it's like you want to shake people, or
right.
it's frustrating to try and explain it sometimes.
Sure. And I know I've said it probably 100 times now, but well, this would be a great time to be a reminder that today's pre-show goodies are brought to you by Balanced, because I forgot what I was going to say. Balanced makes really good watermelon margarita drinks with only 6 grams of total carbs and very clean ingredients, absolutely delicious tasting. You might forget a thing or two. I forgot what I was going to say. Hey, if I remembered everything, this wouldn't be as fun. So that's my take on it. Then I'd be like everyone else. Matt, he don't miss nothing when he does his stuff. I got to be a little different. Let's talk on what was one of the things I had here. Could you delve into a little bit here about the motivational speaking? I know I've seen quite a few times when I'm scrolling through the feed. I'll come across and I'll be listening like, hey, this guy's, I love it. He's sharing a message that I can vibe with. I can feel that motivation. Could you kind of just share a little bit of that with us, where you find the impact with that?
You bet, man. So in 2018, about a year, almost to the day, a year after when I got out of jail, I moved to Whitewater and moved in with a buddy and stayed on his couch and got myself right. My first year was a little stagnant. I did a lot of self-work, like going to counseling and going to group therapy and stuff like that, and getting my mind right and getting in the right place. And I held a job and bought a car and did some good things. So I guess I had some forward progression, but I was still kind of in robot mode, if that makes sense. After a 13-year meth addiction, that first year of being in recovery was kind of like, I guess, like just robotic. Just, I will go to counseling because that's what humans do. I will go to work now and I will collect money and then I will pay my rent. Like, I was very much like an alien who was trying to assimilate with mankind. Like,
right. And, I suppose
it took about almost to the day, a year after moving down to Whitewater, my dad passed away. I got a call that my dad was passing away, and I took a risk and drove up north without a license, just with my car I bought, and went to see my dad on his, at least I was able to be there for him, and see him before he went. But I was supposed to just be coming up there and seeing my dad, but he ended up passing away while I was there, and ended up being like, I was literally holding his hand and watched him go. And it was one of those huge things that changes you, mm-hmm. And after that, I really decided to start living right, because I made, when I was holding his hand and he was leaving, I told him, like, I got this now, Dad. Like, if you need to go, you go,
Right.
And that was literally the last words I spoke to him. He like took his last breath and went. And I was like, holy shit, like, are you going right now, dude? I didn't mean right
Right.
now, what
Right.
the hell? But after that, I realized, because they had warned me before he passed, they warned me that he might make like death gurgles and like just might make weird sounds, or it might be kind of disturbing when he passes away. So, just a forewarning, and
Sure.
he didn't make any sounds. He literally just released my hand, let out his breath, and he was gone. And I know in my heart that it was me being there and telling him, and not lying this time,
Sure.
being able to be there and from a sincere heart telling him that I got this now, Dad. If you need to go, you go. Like, um, and I guess I kind of thought I want more people's parents uh, to be that, to be able to just go if they need to go, not even just pass away, but if you need to move, if you need to do stuff, because when your children are lost in an active addiction, there is such a pressure to stay here and to be there for them, whether it be physically, like here in the house you're in or whatever, or or living in the same state as them when you have an opportunity to leave, or even like my dad's case where you're taking your last breath. And if I couldn't even imagine if I was still out running and gunning. I bet my dad would have stayed in that bed for a lot longer. He would have laid there and struggled for breath, because he would have been worried that if he leaves, I'm not going to be okay. Because my dad had 5 boys. I'm the youngest, and all my other brothers were all grown up and had families, and they got kids and are married, and I was still running and gunning and doing drugs and stealing. And so I was his worrywart, and I feel like if I hadn't straightened up, he would have laid there and suffered for a long time. So I guess I wanted to help more people step into a life of recovery, to give other people that relief of just knowing that your loved one is okay. So that was like the huge driver behind me starting the Point of Change, and that was 2000 July of 2018. I started this page, The Point of Change, and I started sharing my story and just kind of sharing the stuff that I had learned in counseling and therapy, and the knowledge that I have acquired through my recovery, because in my recovery, I really went on a huge mission to figure out what the hell happened to me. Because I was so at such a loss when I came into this, so I learned a lot along the way, and I figured I'd start sharing it. And I've done interviews, and I've been doing it for about 5 years, actually. Even not, well, it was a couple of years ago already now, but we had Tommy Chong on, and I had a couple doctors come up and share, and some awesome stuff that we've done over the years. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm trying to get back into it. This is kind of a huge, awesome opportunity for me to get back out here and just start making videos again and talking to people and sharing my story. So appreciate you guys having me here tonight.
Well, absolutely. And I tell you what, man, anything I can do to help share your story, because first of all, thank you for sharing that, because obviously that's a really personal situation. But we're very similar, as far as like when we've when something happens in life and people say, "Hey, it's really early on, just hang," or what. I'm not good at just, "Oh, I'll wait and talk about it when you're supposed to." I like to, even if it's detrimental or whatever, I like to try to learn from it, and I know. So, like, I learned from when we had our ectopic pregnancy, which I hadn't even thought of going into finding out we were expecting. There was definitely that time where it was like, "Why me?" This kind of thing. But then something just dawned on me that, like, again, I don't know how to word it correctly, but something dawned on me that just it was like something was planted in my head that there's a lot of people that this happens to, and you hear nothing about it because they all have to just deal with it in silence because they're afraid to talk about it. So it's been really interesting the points of time when that's been brought up, since it's happened. But like when people ask how I'm doing, I tell them flat out, like, "Hey, yeah, no, I'm going to." And then if we're talking and we keep talking a little more and more. And then if I get to, and we're trying to have a family, like it's just part of my story. So I share it. And I'm so amazed at how many people it's happened to too, that I otherwise would have had no idea. And part of me is just like, I don't feel anything good about me when this happens, but I just feel like this little sense of when someone can say, oh yeah, so actually that happened to me too. And I've known these people for a while and I had no clue. It just makes me feel good to know that they were able to say it out loud, because I feel a lot of times we can, we try to digest it and stuff, but I do feel like most things in life is a learning opportunity. And, when you talk about with your dad, like, bro, that is, I felt that. I felt that. And the power that message brings, a lot like a lot of your journey, that's I don't even know the word for it. I feel that and I respect that, and I agree with you on how you felt things went like that, because I would feel the same way about my parents, as far as because when you were talking about like your mom was mad but not mad, like I know that feeling. That's my mom. I know she doesn't have to say nothing, and I know when I did something way wrong. And like, and so to be able to figure out how to understand that and to navigate that, I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here and share it with you guys, man, for sure. This is kind of like I was saying, I'm kind of getting back out there, and part of doing that is a big realization that I've been fighting upstream for a long time. I've been pushing a message of cannabis to a crowd of recovery, and I've kind of had this realization that maybe I need to pivot and share a message of recovery towards a crowd of cannabis, because
no, right.
Because when I come to things like this, I'm so, like this, it's so well received. And I'm sure I hope everybody in the comments is learning something and feeling something and making you think a little bit, and real conversations like this are needed, and when I push into the recovery world, as we talked a little bit before, there's just so much stigma. And as much as I enjoy fighting stigma, I think I'm kind of burnt out on it. I get sick of like, why would I want to share my story with a bunch of people who are like, you're not doing it right, and you're just taking the easy route and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because when you were talking about the 12-step program, even, dude, the way the world is today, I was, I know the kind of guy you are, but there's people who would share the story and leave out the part about I didn't get in touch with everybody on that list. Like some people are so, well, no, this has got to be this way. And I feel like there's also, though, the people that are just open and share our failures or are not fully completed, because we figured out that this works for me. I got the message, and I'm moving to the next step. So I think it's a really neat. And your mom has a really good point here, because this is exactly what my mom would say. I'm often surprised I didn't burn out more brain cells and turned out as smart as his mama. Well, I don't know, but no, I've read the wrong part. Matty's message has helped people in recovery as well as their family understand addiction, and that's what's, again, kind of like the story you share with your dad. I think that like just that could help a lot of people too, because a lot of times we can get this, well, why, but sometimes it's in front of us and we just don't know it until we hear someone else's perspective. Just like kind of when I talk to people with the pregnancy thing, or the ectopic pregnancy, and that, like, that's why I talk about it out loud, because if somebody's got it bottled up inside, and it's just like, man, am I the only one that this has happened to be able to share that, it's a comfort, I would think,
Amen. So. And I've found the opposite is true too. Like I said before, I've been pushing this message of cannabis into the world of recovery. And I've found the same thing that you're just talking about there, that I will tell my story to a group of recovering addicts, and I'll have people who tell me, you're not doing it right, and blah, blah, blah. But then I've had so many people who like come up to me and are like, dude, thank you. Because I've been smoking weed this whole time, and I thought I was a piece of crap, and I've been like hiding and shameful about it. Or even I've had people who are like, dude, I got resentment from the 12-step program, so I don't even talk about my recovery anymore, but I recovered from heroin or meth or whatever. But because I smoke weed, they told me I can't share at meetings. They make you feel less than. And you get this mentality that, oh, I guess my story isn't important then because, I still smoke weed. And I hear it in people's voices when they tell me their story too, even though they're starting to get courageous because I shared my story, but they'll say like, yeah, I got 9 years off of meth, but I still smoke. I still smoke meth, or I still smoke weed, and they get like that shameful feeling. And I'm like, no, you should say, I got 9 years off of meth and I still smoke weed, dude, because
Right.
take that butt out of
I
there, dude.
figured out the difference, right? Or I've navigated the difference.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there ain't nothing shameful about it, man.
I agree with you there, man. 100%. This is a good question here. How do you think communities can support addiction recovery and prevention efforts? Because it's got to be a little tricky when, like you're saying, even when you try to help, that sometimes it's not received in the right way. Do you have a little insight on that?
Like I said before, there's so much stigma in this world. There's a stigma towards this and a stigma towards that, and a stigma towards addiction and stigma towards recovery and stigma towards weed, and everything has a stigma towards it. And sometimes it can feel a little daunting and a little overwhelming trying to fight all these things. But honestly, just continue to do what we're doing and continue to love each other and continue to show the world that we're not just a bunch of lazy stoners, and show the world that, I know when an addict is on their worst day. Like if you would have met me on my worst day, if you'd have caught me in your garage stealing copper with no teeth and my eyes sunk in and looking all crazy and digging through your stuff, you'd have wanted to shoot me. You'd have probably wanted to kill me. And I've heard people even say, we should take addicts and put them on an island or shoot them all or whatever. But when people recover from a drug addiction, they are some of the hardest working, strongest minded people in the world, because they've seen what it's like to live in hell, and they are so ready to work their way towards heaven. And I feel like sometimes when you're pulled back into that evil, that you get launched into the good when you come back in.
Sure.
Because so much good is spread by people who have come out of a bad situation. And in a lot of ways, I heard this in early recovery. Somebody said, I'm thankful I got as bad as I did because I never would have got better. And when they first said it, I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
When you first said it now, I was like, what? Wait. Oh,
how can you be thankful for as bad as you got? But when I think about it, if I had just used meth once in a while and not stolen and not done all those bad things, I never would have gotten to a point where I realized my life was shit, and I never would have started pushing for something better. I would have just stayed mediocre, miserable my whole life. But I got as bad as I did. I got to the point where there was no more ignoring it. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug anymore. I actually had to start a path of heading upwards. And my journey upwards has been so awesome. And I've done so much excavating into my life and healed from so many things, and just had this crazy, I smoked a joint with Tommy Chong. I mean, I've had,
right.
I climbed a mountain. I jumped out of a plane. I've done some really awesome shit in my recovery. So I feel like if I had to go to hell to get to where I am today, it was worth it,
Sure.
And in a lot of ways, like a Taoist kind of principle of you can't love yourself unless you love the things that made you, so
sure.
Even the bad things that happened, learning to love that part of yourself.
Sure. Well, and you touched on a point there too, real quick, where like you said, there's some people that say put addicts on an island, and that's just, it's so frustrating because, again, I don't know of any addict, and now granted, I don't know them all, obviously, but I would be willing to bet that nobody who's addicted to any hard substance ever planned on getting that, having the withdrawals, having to have it every day. Nobody in their right mind, even their wrong mind, nobody would want that on themselves. There's nothing to gain. I don't know how anyone would start using it and think, oh, this is going to fix my family, or, oh, this is going to fix my finances. Oh, this is going to be my career. Something pushed somebody to a spot that it could have just been a social thing. It could have been just trying to alleviate concern of something happened, and then your body has a reaction where it needs more, or you need that feeling again, whether it's a physical or psychology, nobody plans on getting that bad. So when we talk about those people and we have this derogative approach, that is just so frustrating to me, because you seem to have been in a spot where you had said there was like a couple people coming to the jail and that were using, and this. Do you know anyone that you've met in your journey when you were using or now? Have you met anyone that has said, I don't want help, I just want to be addicted to this substance?
Honestly, you'd be surprised. I have met people that literally just tell me right away, I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want it, because, and when I was in early recovery and things were starting to get way better, like when I first started the Point of Change, like a year into my recovery, things are starting to get awesome. I'm getting my own place. I'm getting my license back. I got teeth. Like, I'm starting to get the benefits of living the right way, and I got money in the bank and stuff. When that was all going on, it's easy to be like, how could anyone not want this? But when you're in the shit of it, like when you're struggling with the thoughts of, like I said in the beginning, like, the pain of remembering the bullshit you've done in the past, and just this identity that you're a drug addict and you're worthless and all that stuff. I can really, in ways, I can understand why someone would just say, nope, I don't even want to start walking that road, because like, I already know there's a whole mess of shit I'm going to have to go through to get better. So I don't even want to do it. So in ways, I can say that, yeah, I've heard people say that they just don't want help, but I do totally agree with you that nobody ever says, I want to be an addict. I'll just get addicted for a week, or I'll just, you might make the decision to use. I understand
Sure.
why people think that it's a choice, because we make the decision to use, and each time, a lot of times, I made a conscious decision to use, and it was me making that damn decision. I can't blame it on a disease, or I was overtaken, or I was like, no, I'm getting some meth. So I can understand why people say it's a choice, but if you look at it from the stance of like the disease model for like medication and stuff, and you look at it that the stealing, the lying, the using of drugs, all of that are symptoms. I know they're illegal behavior and it's terrible, and watching a person do it sucks, but all of that is just symptoms of an underlying problem that is the drug addiction. And the using of the drugs is actually not a problem. It's that person trying to solve it. And even if they're partying and doing it in a way that seems like they're recreational, or like not even recreational at that point, it's misuse and abuse, and they think they're having fun and partying, they think it's recreational, right?
Sure.
Even that is their way of trying to escape the trauma and the bullcrap that they've lived through, or done to themselves, or done to other people, so it all comes back to this underlying thing. And and not just with drug addicts, that's with all the other addictions we had discussed before, have like start to show those same signs and symptoms. Gamblers start to have alcohol problems and start to lie and steal and all these other things. And even in the other addictions, you see a gambling addiction in the other addictions, like a drug addiction. You're gambling with your money. Are you going to get ripped off? Are you going to get stabbed? Or are you going to lose your house? Are you going to not be able to pay your rent this month? And it's kind of a bet. It's kind of a gamble, so you can see a gambling addiction underneath them too.
Sure.
And I was going to share this with you guys quick. What you said before, or I guess we both kind of touched on it, but about people saying, taking junkies out onto a island or shooting them all. I had somebody on my Facebook friend of mine once. They had reached out to me and told me how proud of me they were for the Point of Change and how I've turned my life around and everything. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And then a few days later, the same person made a post saying that they should round up all the fucking junkies in this town and just shoot them all. And it hit me right in the, I was like, dude, like, you just reached out to me 2 days ago, like, do you think, like, if you rounded up all the junkies and shot them, do you know how many of me you just killed? You know, how many more people that can spread a good message and help the next person and all that? So I wrote this poem about it, and it's called Just Another Junkie. And it's, do you think that I'm alone? Do you think that I'm unique? Do you think that I'm the only addict with a good heart underneath? Look beyond the drugs, the sores and the blisters. We're mothers, we're fathers, we're brothers and sisters. It may be hard to see. I know you can't tell, because I was there too, and we hide it so well. The addiction takes over and you watch us disappear into another world like the other side of the mirror. But there is a way out. We can become so much more, you see, a lesser traveled path that we call recovery. It's not an easy road, and many won't even try. Unless they reach the point of change, some will use until they die. So next time you see that junkie or that drunkard on the street, pray that they get better, that God they finally meet. Because I am not alone, and I am not unique. I am just another junkie who got back up on his feet.
Oh. Bro, I got goosebumps. That is like your story condensed.
Appreciate it, man.
And it's such a powerful, and it's weird because I don't know the exact words, because I would never want somebody to go through what you went through, but the fact that you can share it the way you do, man, it's deep.
Appreciate that, brother. I really do. And that's a big reason why I've decided I need to get back into sharing and get back up here and make these dang videos.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Real quick, squirrel moment. Brandy, were you still in here? Brandy from Canada?
Yep, she's here.
Is she still watching live? Can you tell?
She just said she loves that poem. So.
Oh, right on. Brandy, are you the nice lady that I met? Were you in town in Appleton and went back to Canada? Or you live in Canada? Have I met you? I'm curious on that. I feel like I might have met Brandy, who lives in Canada.
I don't imagine so. She's a follower of mine, actually, from the Point of Change.
No. What?
Yeah. Yup. She says yup.
Wait, what? Brandy, you're the Brandy I met in Appleton?
Or is that yup, I'm still here?
Oh, yeah. I suppose I forget. It's always a little delayed. No, not me. Okay. Phew. That was going to be really crazy.
I'd have been like, you went and met him and you didn't come see me. What the hell?
Fair. Just for like I'm not trying to like switch topics, but I got to kind of just keep digesting here. So we're going to kind of move on to the next one here real quick. I'd really appreciate you sharing that, man. And
no problem, bro. I appreciate you having me on, man. This is an awesome
life.
I love it.
Awesome. The role of spirituality. Talk about your belief in the higher power that you kind of shared and its role in recovery. I noticed that on the website when I was kind of checking out your page there.
Right on. Well, for me, the spiritual journey and the religious journey, if you will, was kind of almost a byproduct of everything. Because it's like, once you start questioning everything on that level of questioning, of course you start to question, well, where did we come from and who are we and all these other things. But I guess I looked into a lot of different religions, really. But Christianity, I guess I was raised we were not really practicing, but we identified as Lutheran. You know, most northern Wisconsin families are Lutheran, so we were too. But we didn't go to church every Sunday or anything, but I guess I knew the Bible stories and things like that. But then once I started my recovery journey, it kind of became, when I became an addict, I became an atheist as well through that, because I came to this point where I just decided, like, there is no God, because God wouldn't allow terrible things to happen. And, I had created a God in my mind, and he couldn't live up to that status. But I guess the God of the Bible kind of came to me in jail, really. After my dad died, like I said, I didn't have a license, but I drove up there anyways. And after my dad passed away, I was on my way back down home, and I got pulled over by a state trooper because I had a cracked windshield. And he pulled me over, and he was either just not having a good day, or he was just not having me, or whatever it was. But he was so cold about like everything. Didn't care that it was my dad's funeral, didn't care. Just, you don't got a license, you're driving, blah, blah, blah. Searched the vehicle, found my weed. I didn't find my weed, found my weed pipe. Found a bottle of wine that my mom had given me at my dad's funeral, but I was on a no drink. So like, instead of like looking at it through the lens of love as it's a bottle of wine from a funeral, and he's using cannabis to help himself with his meth addiction. No, it was just, dude, you're a repeat offender because you now got a minor mood altering substance in the vehicle, and you got alcohol. He literally brought the bottle of wine over to me in the back seat, and like I'm shaking and crying and pissed off. And he shows me the wine, and he's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "It's a bottle of homemade wine from my mom." And he's like, "You can't have this. You're on a no drink." Walks back over, cracks the top off on the blacktop, dumps the wine out in front of it, throws the broken bottle by my feet in the back seat. Like, just the biggest dick.
Unfortunately, they are out there.
Yeah, not all cops are bad, and I didn't even say he was a bad cop. He's just doing his job, and he just wasn't happy. On paper, I don't look good, so
Sure.
So he was just going by the books. I can't even knock him for it, and I can't knock him for it because it was all meant to happen. Like, I was on my way back from my dad passing away. I've attempted suicide a couple times in the past. I'm a former drug addict. Like, I don't know what could have happened, but in a way, God stepped in and made sure nothing could happen, and he threw me in a metal cell, So in ways, it was all supposed to happen. And then I got put into a cell when they booked me in, he was like, "Put him in with the holy rollers," the guy said. And I was like, "Oh, great." And I was a total atheist. I called Jesus the spaghetti monster because I figured if you're going to thank God, you might as well thank the spaghetti monster while you're at it.
Gotcha.
So I was very much a naysayer on all of it. And then I got put in with the holy rollers, and I'm in a cell in Wausau with a bunch of active meth addicts are in the cell with me. And all day, all they're doing is talking about doing meth. And I decided I was just going to stay in my bunk and put my blanket over my head because my dad just died. I'm a year clean. I'm shut up, leave me alone. And, but it's hard to stay under that blanket for as long as, who knows how long you're going to be in there. You're in there on a probation hold, so they can just literally just be there whenever, whenever the probation officer comes down to see you. And I was waiting on transport, so it's a whole thing. But later that night, all of a sudden I hear somebody talking, and he's being positive, and he's talking about God, and he's talking about forgiveness, and he's talking about all these good things and grace and mercy and beautiful things. And I said, "You know what? I don't believe in any of that crap, but they're being positive. They're not talking about meth. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to sit at this table and I'm going to listen to, talk to these guys." So I went over and I sat down and I just started talking to them, and they wanted to know who I was and where I'm from. So like, I just poured my heart out to those guys. Like, I just opened up, told them everything about my drug addiction, about year clean, about dad dying, everything, just poured it out. And like, the whole group of those guys was on the edge of their seats like the whole time. And they were just, "Dude, what happened next? Oh my God. Wow." And I get done, and we get done with the Bible study. And the leader of the Bible study, or the leader, whatever, the guy who was doing it, Shane, he came up to me afterwards and was like, "Dude, I got to tell you, like, you have a gift. Like, the way you came up and when you shared your story with these guys and they all locked in and were listening to your every word." He's like, "Dude, I try to do that every night at that Bible study, and I can't get them to pay attention to me. They're talking to each other and playing cards and doing whatever." He's like, "You came over here and none of them talked for an hour. Like, that's a gift you have, man. You have to." And he really built me up and sat me down, and we did like some one-on-ones. And he was only into the Bible for like 3 months at that time. He was just kind of what you would call like a jailhouse pastor, you come into the jailhouse and you get all biblical and make all these promises to God. But he ended up getting back out. And when he went out, he went back to heroin and wound up killing somebody, honestly. And he's back in prison now for the rest of his life. So it's kind of crazy that he met me and introduced my faith and gave me this peace that helped me go farther. And then he goes back out and is now gone. Crazy. And I've tried to reach out, but he won't talk to me. So we're kind of at a standstill with all that.
Oh no.
Yeah. But when I got released from there, or I finally got transport, Shane gave me a Bible before I left. He told me, just take my Bible with you, man, and keep reading it. And I was like, all right, cool, man. Thank you. And it didn't look like this when I got it. I put a cover on it and stuff because it's super important to me now. But for those 2 weeks that I was in there, I was praying every day. I was reading the Bible every day. I was going to a Bible study every day. But I had this submersive goal of it. Like, I'm going to worship God, but only if he gets me things, right? Like, so I was praying, I was doing all that, but I was only doing it because I wanted a signature bond. All I wanted was to get my transport. And then when I got my transport, and I wanted him to get me a signature bond from that judge. Because if you know, signature bond just means you sign a piece of paper and they let you out, as opposed to putting up money until you have to go to court kind of thing, a cash bond. So I was praying for a signature bond. I finally get transferred down to the other jail where I'm supposed to be, where I see my probation officer. And when I first get there, I came in, the only thing I had on me was this Bible. And the guy booking me in was like, you can't take this in the cell with you. And I was like, why not? And he's like, because we just can't let you bring anything from the outside in. It might have drugs in the pages. We don't know. You can't have it. And I was like, okay. He's like, we'll give you a Bible from our library that you can use while you're here, but you can't have that one. I was like, all right, whatever, man. So he puts me in the cell with this loaner Bible. And then I go to court, and the judge is not having none of it, dude. Like, and I've been hearing for the last 2 weeks, everybody I talk to, jailers, people in jail, everybody I talk to is like, you're going to get a sig bond. Don't worry about it, dude. And I've been praying for it. And I figure, so that's what I'm expecting. And then I get in there and this judge is like, no, like, you are a flight risk. Like, you do not look good. So we're going to need $1,000 cash bond to let you out. And I'm like, what? So I lose my mind. I go back, they put me back in my jail cell, and I go back in there, dude. And I took that loaner Bible that they gave me, and I just ripped it apart and destroyed this Bible, right? Like, started opening it up, spitting in it, throwing it against the wall, screaming at God, telling him he's no God. He can't get me a signature bond. He's nothing to me. Like, who are you? You say that if I have faith the size of a mustard seed, that I can move a mountain, but I pray for 2 weeks and I can't get a signature bond, isn't that a mustard seed, and screaming, having this whole fucking fighting match with God. And then finally the jailer comes in. He's like, Matt, you got to calm down. We're doing video jail or video court in the next room. We can hear you hollering in here. You got to stop. I go, okay, all right, I'll
literally got to stop.
Yeah, he's like, I'll come back when I'm done. I'll get you out of here, man. Or I'll bring you out and we'll make some phone calls. Because I had told him part of my story too, and he told me I was going to get a signature bond. And he's like, dude, I thought you were going to get a signature bond too. I'll come get you. We'll make some calls. Do you think you can find somebody to get you out? And I was like, maybe, whatever, So I sit down and I'm sitting over there muttering at the Bible the whole time, just, screw you. You're nothing. You ain't nothing, blah, blah, blah. And, and then finally he comes back and he gets me and he brings me out, and we start making some phone calls, and I call my buddy Ryan, or no, first I called my bank and I found out that I had like $983 in my account, right? Like almost 1,000. So I call my best friend and I'm like, dude, can you borrow me $20? Like, come down to the jail, bring $20 with you. I'll pay $983. You pay the other 20. We'll get me out of here. He's like, yeah, no problem. I'm on the way. The jailer puts me back in my cell. Like 5 minutes later, he comes, gets me out, and he's like, Matt, we got a problem. I ran your card, but when I ran the card, the jail tacked on a 10%. So it overdrafted your account and it froze your bank account for 3 days. So So now you like have to stay here because your bank
Oh
account
my God.
froze.
Because we can't get the money.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, no. So I called, I'm like, well, screw it. I guess I'm staying. I don't even care. I guess I'm staying. And he's like, he's like, well, let's go call your buddy because he's on his way. You might as well call him and tell him not to come. And I'm like, all right, cool. So he gets me out and I call up my buddy. I'm like, hey, man, don't even worry about it. Like they overdrafted my account. Now I got to stay for 3 days until my money's opened up. And my buddy got more pissed than I was. He was like, those motherfuckers.
I bet.
They're always trying to come up with some shit. Like he's like, I'm on my way. I'm going to go get $1,000 and I'm coming to bail you out right now.
Oh,
Screw
snap.
that. So I'm like, cool, sweet. All right. So he puts me back in my jail cell to wait for my buddy to get there. And I'm sitting there super vindicated, right? Because I'm like back to talking to God. I'm like, I didn't need you. I made the calls myself. And I had to, I borrowed money and I did all this myself. And then my buddy gets there. They come and get me out of my cell. And dude, when I was walking past and the jailer's like, oh yeah, Matt, here you go. And handed me back this Bible. And as soon as it hit my hand, I had this realization of, oh, you are real. You knew I was going to tear up a Bible in that jail cell.
Oh, snap.
You knew that I was going to be tested and that I was going to throw a fit. So you took it away from me.
I was waiting for the you know, kind of tie to something to like bring back. I didn't see that one coming.
Dude,
which I'm guessing you didn't either.
I didn't. And it was like the weight of the world hit my hand when he handed me that Bible. It was like, oh, wow. Like, and ever since I've gone to church every Sunday. I still can't say that I 100% am, I'm a true believer and that my faith is so great or any of that, but I'm learning and I'm trusting and I'm learning how to, to believe in a higher power greater than myself. And in ways, it's really important on the level of recovery because there's so many times when you just feel so wronged and everything's so hard and you want to go scream at the sky. So it's really important for me to believe that there's someone up there that I'm actually screaming at that's listening to me, and sure. It's just, for me, it's been better and it's made my life better. Some people, faith is, it doesn't do that for them. And I can appreciate that too. I have friends who grew up and were religiously traumatized, by churches and different things. So I totally understand, being the other way. And I was atheist myself. So I can totally understand, not really believing in God or any of that stuff. But once I started looking though, because that was just a glimpse. That was just a wow, you knew, but once I really started looking and actually started reading behind it and looking into the evidence behind it, because I just had this day where I was like, I can't believe this crap. I can't believe it. Like, I can't read this book about this talking snake and this bull crap. And I can't believe it. I just can't. I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't even come to the conclusion that Jesus was a real man. I couldn't even tell you that, I was so stuck in the spaghetti monster thought for so long,
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally just prayed about it. And I was like, God, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. These stories, these giants and flooding the world and all this stuff is just nonsense to me. Like, how do I believe this crap? And the message I got back, or that I felt, was if you need proof, go find it. So I kind of went on this journey of digging into evidence of biblical proof outside of the Bible, because of course the Bible's going to tell you it's true, but where outside of the Bible do we have evidence of Jesus and things like that?
Real quick, did you come across the Shroud at all?
The Shroud of Turin?
Yeah. Dude, I was kind of at the same point you were, because it's hard. And please, anybody listening, please know that in my opinion, religion is religion is the same. I see religion the same way I see the COVID vaccine. Boy, we're really going deep here, boys. We're going to see how many people we know.
But we're going to push some followers away today, bro.
But again, if you believe in God, I think you're doing the right thing. If you don't believe in God, I think you're doing the right thing. I don't think anybody is doing anything wrong when it comes to their beliefs, because we're all raised differently. Just because we don't see something the same way doesn't mean I need to disagree with you. Would I try to help you? Am I the most perfect believer or anything like that? No, not at all. And I don't feel like I'm the person that should be going up to people and saying, hey, you need to do this, or even, hey, did you want to learn about God? I feel like with my faith, with whatever it is, my faith in God, if it was meant to be shared with other people, it will just happen because they will like seek it out or what, like, we don't have to disagree, or we can disagree, but still be friends, and still, it should not affect how we interact at all. Same with cannabis. You can say that cannabis, you don't want to use cannabis, but if you're going to tell me cannabis shouldn't be legalized, just give me some facts, or what's your belief? How did you end up getting there? And in that case, that I feel like we should talk about, because again, that's factual. I feel like there's enough facts to back it up. Where again, religion, that's completely based on how you're raised, and we shouldn't be judging each other on how we're raised. You know what I mean? Like, that's
oh, for sure. I mean, and even if you're not raised in it, or whatever, we're all going to go on a self-discovery journey at some point in your life. And if you get into it, you may not, maybe you won't. And honestly, I can appreciate a life where you don't look deeper into things too. I honestly wish I didn't question everything constantly. My brain drives me insane.
I feel that, man.
So I envy people that are just like, yes, work, sleep, pay rent. I am good. Yes, I do. Just keep moving on. Like my brother's that way. Like, I'll be like, dude, have you ever thought about the fourth dimension? He's like, nope. And I don't care to. I'm like, okay.
I'm going down a rabbit hole myself, but just kind of speaking on family there, what would you say is the importance of a support system in the recovery process? But it's kind of two-sided, because that, but also I think that I feel like you just tell it like it is, obviously, with what you've been sharing and stuff. You could also verify what my understanding would be, which is you probably had some very caring parents, and it's not how you're raised does not affect if you can end up being addicted to drugs. Would you say it's more so just about, I feel like but you could have never gotten in trouble, have a 4.0, have paid for, got a job at 14, paid for your own everything. But if you end up in the wrong crowd of people, it's not about how you're raised, but also then just if you could touch on about family and what it means, what that looks like.
Sure. The nature versus nurture argument of it is awesome. Really, it's very fascinating to me, especially because I myself grew up, like I often say, I grew up in Mayberry, dude. Like, I came from northern Wisconsin, a town of 300 people. Like, everybody knows each other. We weren't well off or rich, but we didn't go without either. We had a roof over our head. We always had food in the fridge. My mom and dad got divorced when I was pretty young, but my dad was always still in the picture. He was an over-the-road. Honestly, my dad was an over-the-road truck driver since I was born. So when my parents got divorced, it didn't really hit me, honestly, until years later. And still to this day, because my dad he was only home every other weekend anyways. So, so when I went to see him, but he was there for his weekends, took me in the truck every summer, and especially once I fell into my drug addiction, my dad was really there for me there later in my life. But yeah, it's not a matter of, being raised in a good home or any of that. It's a lot has to do with such an individual case by case basis. I think a lot of it has to do with our individual personalities and whether we are already going to have a proclivity to use drugs. I think, growing up in the nature of, being around in a drug addicted home doesn't help. But I know people that grew up in a drug addicted home that just said no because they seen their mom and dad messed up and didn't want to do that, so they never touched drugs. Whereas me, I didn't even know what weed was until I was 14. So it was a whole different world. Well, I knew what it was, but outside of them bringing that little tray of smelly stuff around in the DARE program, outside of that, I had never smelled weed. I had never seen weed. If I did smell it, I didn't know that I had smelled it. You know what I mean? So I didn't know anything about weed till I was 14 years old. And then I started dabbling and just kind of found myself into a life of addiction. And in a lot of ways, I think drugs are kind of a placeholder. And when I say drugs in this sense, I mean like illicit drugs, like drugs of abuse, like meth and cocaine and heroin and things like that. they're kind of a placeholder for something that's missing in your life. Like if you have a lack of love in your life, or a lack of peace in your life, or a lack of, things that humans genuinely crave and want in their life, drugs can be a placeholder for that thing, right? We can end up putting, well, I don't get enough love, but I got all kinds of drugs, so it kind of becomes a placeholder. So it's a matter of building a life where you have those things and developing those things in your life if you don't have them, and meeting the right people and creating a network of friends and family. And I don't always say family, because a lot of us in the world of recovery, a lot of people don't have a good family. Like, I'm very blessed with the family that I had. But I often say life is like poker, and if you don't, when you're born, you get dealt this hand of cards, and you don't even know how to play poker. So you might have been dealt the perfect hand, but you don't even know what you're doing. So you threw it back in and drew new cards, So I didn't even know I was born. I was already handed a full house. I had supportive parents. I got, all these good things going for me. Didn't even realize that I had them all, threw them all away. Kind of like a saying that I like is that if a man is stuck in a hole and he has a ladder, if he doesn't utilize the ladder, he'll never get out of the hole. Counting your blessings isn't enough. You can wake up every morning and say, thank you, Lord, for sending me this beautiful ladder. But if you don't actually put the footwork in and climb the damn ladder, you'll just stay in the hole with your ladder.
That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it.
So that's kind of where I was. I had a supportive family. I had a good personality. I had all the right things. I'm a fairly intelligent individual. And I just threw those cards back in because I was like, no, I don't, I don't even know how to play poker.
I felt that. I felt that as well. I think Justin, is it Justini? I feel like this is a name that I should be able to figure out. It's like a nickname, but Justini. I don't know that it is much using. I don't know that it is much using parents as it is how the parents act when they use that. I think you hit that on the head, because like she was saying here, I thought alcohol was awesome because my parents partied all the time and had fun. My friend had never tried alcohol. Her dad was a violent drunk. That's I see what you're saying there. That's a very good point.
That's an awesome perspective. I really like that.
Justine. Okay, it's Justine. Sorry about that. Kenneth says, I was on a mix of pills for my PTSD and depression from 12 till 15. I started using cannabis and haven't looked back. I'm over 50 now. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome
right
to hear.
And
Best move I ever made, he says.
Hell yeah. The more research that they're doing too, as legalization progresses and more research is done into not only cannabis, but psilocybin mushrooms and other things that are, being looked at to treat PTSD, depression, anxiety. And honestly, like, I'm very thankful. I know the world we live in today is kind of screwed up, but like in some levels, I'm so thankful that like anxiety, depression, the things like mental illness is treated the way it is today, compared to go back to 1990 and tell somebody you struggle with depression and they're like, oh yeah, you hear old suicidal guy over here. Oh no, he's going to go home and kill himself, everybody, So there was such a different atmosphere towards mental health conditions, and everybody, you were just crazy and they'll put you in the nut house and stuff, Whereas today it's like so just not only accepted, but like advocated for, and there's help out there for us and help out there for anybody struggling with that kind of stuff.
100%. Moving on, we got 2 questions left here. Again, if anyone has anything, make sure you just ask us here in the comments. Future of addiction therapy. What do you think? What are like your speculations and hopes for the future in addiction therapy and recovery methods? Just, obviously being that you've kind of been through that.
A fellow advocate of mine, Quinn LaPierre, or Quinn Stone, as he's known on a lot of social media content stuff. He just opened a men's tribal house where it's an actual like a recovery center where it's 420 friendly, and he's actually gotten like some news coverage and stuff of this place. So like to see the forward progression in alternative methods of recovery is so awesome. And it gives me so much hope for the future, because for so long there's been this one-sided message of recovery, that the only way to recover from a drug addiction is to be 100% clean and sober, and to be working a steady program, and to be going to meetings at least weekly, sometimes daily. And that was the only valid way that was held to recover, as those NAAA ways. And there's been so many other people that have been recovering under the table, and I think the progressive movement with legalization and everything else is gonna bring those people out of the woodwork. They're finally going to be able to express themselves and say, yes, I am, yes, I smoke cannabis and I'm in recovery. There's not going to be that shame and outside pressure to keep it quiet, And I really feel that when people start to put 2 and 2 together, to me, it's almost so common sense to think, what are some of the symptoms of withdrawal, sleep deprivation and poor appetite and aches and pains and all these things. Okay, well, what are the effects of cannabis? Oh, well, it helps you with your appetite. It helps you sleep. It takes away aches and pains. It's almost like a no-brainer to use cannabis to help people step away from harder drugs. But it is a little counterintuitive to use a mind or mood altering substance to help someone who has a substance abuse disorder. It seems counterintuitive, but that's exactly what we're finding, is that cannabis is helping people with a substance use disorder. It's helping them moderate their addiction. And we're learning that addiction isn't quite as overpowering. And I'm not trying to say in all cases, I'm not trying to shoot anybody down on their recovery and stuff, but there's a lot of evidence that it used to be thought that addiction was just this overpowering thing that you just had no control over it. But there's more and more evidence that addicts do either retain or regain some control over their ability to navigate inebriation, so to speak. That mild mind or mood altering substances don't always send an addict back over the crazy edge like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. That some addicts are coming out saying, yeah, actually I can do this or I can do that. And some people are shooting it down and saying, they're just deluded and they're just still actively using. But if you have someone who's using a mind or mood altering substance, that is a red flag for addiction, right? That should be a red flag, and it should. It should. If somebody's smoking cannabis in their recovery, I'm not saying that you should just go, oh, well, that's fine. It should be a red flag. But when you see one red flag, you don't just immediately jump to the conclusion that that person is suffering from a terrible disease. We're not medical professionals. We can't diagnose you with addiction, Right. And when you see one symptom of a disease, doesn't mean that that person is struggling with that disease. So if you see cannabis use, well, then start to look for, are they lying? Are they stealing? What are the other symptoms of addiction? Are they displaying those? Are they, using more than they say they do? Are they keeping a steady job? Are they paying all their bills? Are they being a responsible adult? All these, honestly, to me, those questions and questions like, are you making amends for your past? Are you accepting a higher power? Are you, working on the underlying problems that caused the addiction in the first place? Those questions are way more important to me than, are you 100% clean and sober? Are you 100% clean and sober seems to be the standard question for recovery these days. It's like, if you got all that other crap, your kids still hate you, your life's falling apart, you ain't paying your bills, but damn it, at least you're sober, and it's like, how can we say that? Aren't those other things so much more important than whether or not this person smoked a joint last night?
Well, and I think this kind of touches up with where I'd like to kind of wrap or just kind of finish off on here. What would you say is your call to action as far as do you feel like listeners? I know this, but I'm assuming you encourage listeners to get involved in advocacy and to support for addiction recovery and prevention. And I think that we have a great platform with what you have going and with what I have going to collaborate. To whether it's yours, mine, we just need to keep reaching the people. Because again, I think it's about bringing awareness, bringing education. The only reason I think it's not legal is due to a lack of education. Because I still haven't found somebody who said that it shouldn't be legalized that has given me a fact that is actually a factual piece of information that makes any sense. So what is just your kind of take as far as a call to action? I'm assuming it's pretty similar.
Oh, very similar. And just another side to it is like, there's so much negativity in the world and so much crap out there, that if you have the ability to put out something good into the world, whether it be comedy or music or talents or advocacy for, changing of unjust laws, whatever your thing is that you can put out in this world and help, don't think that you can't make a difference. I come from a town of 300 people. I was a meth addict. I smoked all the teeth out of my face. I'm 5'4" in real life, 130 pounds, and I have 15,000 followers on Facebook, and have reached people and have smoked weed with Tommy Chong and spoke to senators, and now I'm up here doing this podcast for you guys today. So never count yourself out. Never think, I'm just the little guy, nobody will listen to me. You would be shocked what you can do, and just don't count yourself out. And just stand up for the way you live your life, especially if you know your why and you know that what you're doing is right and it's good. Then don't be ashamed of it. Don't hide it. And if people give you shit for it, do it right in their faces. That's the best advice I can give you.
I feel that, man. I feel that, because we're going to be touching on a lot of things here coming up, as far as, I've been trying to figure out the different perceived big issues in the way of legalization. So we've been able to debunk the Tavern League. I've got a gentleman who's going to be, or he's on the state board where it sounds like it'd be the president or the vice president that is going to be hopping on a podcast at some point in the near future here. I think that'll be awesome. When it comes to politicians, that's why I'm at the Capitol now, is to meet with these folks and again, we're just going to keep digging until we figure it out, because it needs to be done. And if we didn't see it firsthand, we would not be this amped up about it. And just like I'm assuming you have safe access to cannabis because we can all drive to Michigan. So if we were only worried about ourselves, we just leave it where it's at. But seeing what it does, or knowing how it helps me, or how it helps you, we want to keep getting that to the people who deserve it. So I think it's really neat that, completely different journeys, but here we both are looking to do the same thing and to try to collaborate with each other and learn from each other. I think it's just it's a pretty unique opportunity, man. I'm really glad that we were able to meet up.
Right on. I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, exactly. We'd bring some amazing people together, just make some good connections. Without cannabis, Cheech would have never hung out with Chong,
Yeah, fair. And then where would we be without that? But
right.
Well, right on, everybody. Appreciate everyone who stopped out tonight. Appreciate everyone's support. Matty, appreciate you sharing your story. Really powerful, man. I don't really know what else to say right now, as far as like expressing that.
I appreciate you having me on and listening and just being so excited and so accepting of everything and non-judgmental. And I just appreciate the opportunity to share my story. And if anybody else wants to see more of me, you can follow my personal profile, Matty Jablonsky, or you can follow my my public page there at the Point of Change. If you look up Matty Jablonsky, though, you'll see two profiles. One is very obviously a meth addicted Matty Jablonsky from the past. That's my old profile.
Okay.
I don't do anything on there. It's just still there. And when you look me up, you'll see my bright, happy face, and then you see this shadowy, horrible figure of my former self.
Hey,
I still wish that profile a happy birthday every year, though. I do.
That's awesome. Patty, thank you for stopping out. And I'm really happy that you stuck by Matty. And obviously I would assume most parents would, but I know life is crazy. So I could see where there could be a point in time where somebody could be given I don't even know the words. I'm just glad that you were here. I'm glad that you're here. So I hope everyone has a good night. This is the Beans and Matty. Matt, if you want to stick around for a hot second once we hang up here.
For sure, bro.
Everybody have a good night. We'll catch you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Adios.